Guys, we've got another week of golf here after the Open Championship. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I thought Spieth would win, and Spieth did win. So, in my FanDuel cash lineup last week, I figured that Spieth wasn't so much higher priced than, you know, a guy like Sergio or Fowler who were going to be popular, that I didn't think I was sacrificing much by getting Spieth in there. And I went down to Patty Harrington in cash. He only missed the cut by a stroke, so can't really complain about that. Molinari was the guy that really let me down on FanDuel and DraftKings. He really left me lingering around the cut line over on or cash line over on DraftKings. Kind of screwed my week over there, but yeah, we're back at it this week. I feel like I have a pretty good read on things, where the ownership is going to go, and where some good pivots might be. So we'll just get right into it. This is the Canadian Open, held outside of Toronto, I think. Glen Abbey Golf Club. Now, if you're a course history person, I factor it in. I don't consider it to be the only reason I would play someone, but so Glen Abbey has hosted this tournament at least 6 times that anyone really in this field has played. So if you see on my course history column, the most recent time is 2016, 2015, 2013, 2009, 2008, and way back in 2004, they played this tournament here as well. It kind of rotates between a bunch of different clubs, some of varying difficulties, and that, I think, makes looking at course history for the tournament itself not as helpful here as looking at particular course history. So, you'll see some guys say, oh, this guy hasn't missed a cut in 5 years at the Canadian Open. Or, I don't really care about what his results were at those other tournaments. Missing a cut, okay, well, or making a cut and not finishing highly is, Gary Woodland syndrome, as I like to call it. That's not going to get the job done if you're actually trying to win, reasonably large sums of money in this game. I mean, that's kind of why I don't like Woodland very much this week. He has not shown me anything about scoring recently. He just lingers around 60th place. Like, okay, cool, you get a nice little paycheck, but you're not going to win anything big taking a guy that's doing that. So, getting into it at the top, just wanted to explain the course history aspect a little bit. And please don't judge me for drinking a Natty Light today. It's a leftover from a friend's get-together, but cheers. Yeah, so, I'm not going to count the 2009, 2008 course history too much, but it does help to see that, this guy's basically, to me, it says this guy has played well at this course for over a decade, almost, which to me says something. More so than, oh, guy showed up here once and, did this. Well, okay, cool, but, where's the consistency? Some of these guys are young, too, so, but it depends. So I'm going to start at the top with Dustin Johnson, the favorite to win, and I will have it sorted by DraftKings price to start. But, I mean, DraftKings pretty on point here with, first observation looking at the sheet. First observation is that the tee to green lasts 12 rounds. I mean, the guys at the top are killing it. So there, I think, are some guys down here in the very low ranges that we can look at. But, yeah, starting at the top with DJ, I mean, he, Matt Wiley at Wiley77, I think, really pinned down kind of why I was hesitant to play DJ at the U.S. Open, was because although everything was pointing to him, he just had a kid. And, I mean, these guys aren't fucking machines. They don't just have kids and then, put them in a machine that takes care of them while they go play golf, and Paulina puts on her sundress and waltzes around for the cameras. That's not what happens. These guys are people, too. They have families. So that was his take on things. That was why I was hesitant to play DJ at the U.S. Open. But I figured, oh, if I fade DJ at this course where everyone thinks he's going to win, and then he wins, I'm going to be the fool here. So I played him and it sucked. But so he had one really good round on Saturday at the Open, and then just blew up on Sunday. I think he knew he was out of contention and just didn't really give a fuck at that point. That's possible, but at the same time, he's the best golfer in the world. He knows he's the best golfer in the world, and he wants to prove that. You don't get to that title and then stop caring. So his course history here, he's 2 second places. He had a withdraw back in 08, but that I don't care about a withdrawal back in 08. But yeah, tee to green last 12, great. Off the tee last 12, great. Approach, middle of the field. When I say middle of the field, I mean middle of the cut-making field. I don't want guys that are going to be around the cut line. I'm just not going to talk about them very much. I like to just double my money and play the optimal lineup and not game theory myself to death. I feel like I get into a lot of traps by doing that. So like the other week at John Deere was a great example. I liked Streelman and Summerhays in cash on FanDuel. Same prices, Ben Martin and Bryson. Now, I was riding Streelman and Summerhays for like 3 weeks. So going to Bryson, sure, I could have done that in cash. But did I think that Bryson was a better GPP play? Yes, because he was going to be lesser owned. But yeah. So I think DJ's a little more expensive than I'd like to pay for a guy this week, especially with the question marks that I have around him. I think he's at this event to kind of just be there. I don't really know what his motivation to win this event is. Maybe it's a go find form type of event for him, coming up to Quail Hollow at the PGA Championship, but I don't really know what's up with him. But, does he have the best chance to win? Definitely. Is he the best player in this field? By a mile. But, yeah, I just don't think you need him. He's going to really hinder your ability to make a solid 6-person lineup, FanDuel, I think he's a much easier fit. But DraftKings, I just don't love the 6K range. And, I love the 7K range. Love it. But I'll probably make one GPP lineup. I'm not a big multi-lineup guy, but make one GPP lineup with DJ at the top and then just hammer the 7K guys in there. But Kuchar is another guy that, you gotta feel for the guy, tied with Spieth, and then Spieth goes all take his sweet old time finding his ball, all that. Kuchar, I know you're a nice guy, man, but gotta lay the fucking hammer down and just say, let's get it, This is my tournament too. This is my final pairing as well. Yeah, feel bad for the guy. And it's not like he lost the tournament in the final 5 holes. I think he played it 2 under. But man, Spieth 5 under in those holes. What can you do? And then the family scene at the end, great stuff. But so it makes me wonder, like, why. I don't know why he's playing this event, man. Like, just take a week. Take a week, man. So, like, he might try to just get the fuck out of here, but, like, that's not his style. He shows up for paychecks. That's what he does. So, I don't know what to make of him, man. Like, every stat that I love this week, he's there. He doesn't crush the par 5s, but he crushes the par 4s. And he's been very good at this particular range of par 5s. I think it's the very long par 5s that he's played. So par 5 birdie or better is season long for me. Everything else is going to be last 12 unless I say otherwise. So yeah, like season long par 5 birdie or better, not killing it, but last 50 rounds of this range of par 5s, and I have this because when you get into ranges of holes instead of just like par 4 scoring, when you get into ranges of holes, you have guys playing less of these holes. So last 12 rounds, par 5, 500 to 550, like that might be 4 holes that they played 10 times. Like I don't think that that's a very telling sample size. So I'm going to go a bigger round sample size for that kind of stat. Um, so you kind of eliminate outliers. But I like Kuchar. I mean, his record here speaks for itself. He missed his cut in '08, which, again, I'm not going to weigh. But a ninth, a seventh, and a second. Elite course history, elite level stuff. So you love to see that. Jack Nicklaus design, Kuchar loves that. But it's just one of those things where, like, I'm paying a lot for Matt Kuchar, and I am not sure that I need to be paying that much for him. When you have a guy like Charlie Hoffman, 1,100, not 900, 1,100 cheaper, 1,100 exactly on both sites. I think that's where I'm starting. Well, not on FanDuel, but I think I'm starting my DraftKings cash lineups with Hoffman. 25 to 1 odds, not great, but I honestly think he could be lower than that, and it would be perfectly reasonable. I think he could be 18 to 1. It would be reasonable. He also checks out very well. Approach, he's been a little off, but checks out very well in all the stats I'm looking at. He's a long hitter. He's good around the greens, and yeah, I think that's Los Angeles for you. But I don't really mind Hoffman at all this week. I think he's a great play in all formats. FanDuel, DraftKings. I'm definitely loading him up on both sites. He has not missed a cut here. He is 3 of 3, no worse than 28th, and he's trending up. So I like that a lot. I mean, I didn't think he was going to do well at all last week on a links course that demanded accuracy and tight play, but he went out there and surprised me. So the fact that he's playing well on courses that I don't think fit his game really speaks a lot, and I like him a lot this week. Tony Finau, another guy I like a lot this week. It's hard not to like this guy every week when he is a tee to green machine. I mean, it's just basically on the greens, and he's not the best, but he's actually been putting pretty well in his last 12 rounds. His approach game has let him down a little bit, but he's been hit. He is the most greens in regulation hit on tour this year, I believe. So I really like to see that. 70th and a 22nd in his past 2 times here. 70th last year worries me a little bit, but he was coming off of a 4th place finish at the Open, which I think was probably like the largest paycheck he's ever gotten. And I feel like that may have just played a role in him just kind of like coming here and not really kind of like a whirlwind of events type of thing where Tony Finau at the Open, and then shit, I'm in 4th. I'd taken home a fat chunk of change here. So I like him a lot more this year. I think he's an established player. I think he wants to win, and I mean, he's just been on fire. Like the guy makes his moves on the weekend, and that's a little scary from a sweat perspective for the cut, but don't really see any reason not to like Finau's game for this course where bombers are a little more favored. So I like him this week. Bubba, oh man, what can we say about Bubba? So he's been pretty bad all year. I haven't been playing him, but he's made the last 3 cuts. He has a 2nd, a 21st, and 2 missed cuts here, but those 2 missed cuts were way back in '09 and '08, so again, not really focusing on that. But 2nd place here in 2015, that's great, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, he came into that event in much better form. I'll go check on that, but not right now. So I don't know, man. I think Bubba's cash viable on both sites if you're into that, but I'm not. His approach game has been wonky. His putting hasn't been great. He did perform really well at the Open last week on a course that, again, I didn't think fit him very well. But, I don't know. I mean, I think he's definitely in play on both sides. But, what I think it is. I think he has a very wide range of outcomes. I mean, but again, he's a class player, and I think he's finding something in his game right now. Furyk, old man Jim, um, three top 30s in his last three tournaments. One at the U.S. Open, which I didn't think fit his game at all. Played well at the Travelers, which I like to see. That was a course that I think he's done well at in the past. But I was off of him just because I was worried. Oh, one good performance at the U.S. Open. What does that mean? Well, now he has three good top 30s in a row. He's looking solid. These stats don't really tell the full story here because off the tee, we never expect much from Furyk. And that really, I think, holds back his tee to green game, but he performed well here. 13th, 4th, 9th, 14th. And the all others T40/10, I mean, so that goes to his proximity rating from 125 to 150. Every other proximity range, he is like top 40, top 10 in this field. So so 125 to 150 is where a lot of the approach shots are going to be hit here. A lot of these holes are 400 to 450 yards, but Furyk isn't hitting the ball 300 yards very often at all. So for me, I'm more for Furyk. I may be, I'm not going to add a stat category just for everyone else that doesn't bomb the ball like most of these guys do. But so Furyk, like, it's not his game. He's going to go to like 150 and just plunk it in there and make birdie and move on. So I think Furyk is absolutely fine this week. My debate on FanDuel is, do I take Furyk or Ollie? Well, Furyk's track record here says take Furyk here, and Ollie's recent form doesn't make me say take Ollie over him. So I'm going to go with Furyk. His approach game is fine still, and this is a course that he does well. I'm not going to overthink it and try to get cute. FanDuel, that price is absurd. His odds are 45 to 1. I get that is dropping throughout this week, but that's just because I don't think Furyk wins. Okay? Like, I don't think Furyk wins this week. I'll say. But do I see Furyk missing the cut here at this event where he's top 14 4 times? No, I don't. So I like that. I mean, Furyk knows where he needs to be on this course where there's a lot of danger. And he can get to those spots and be safe and not put up a big number that could limit him to missing the cut. I don't see that happening. Kevin Chappell. Nobody's talking about Kevin Chappell, which makes Kevin Chappell immediately a great GPP play because he is 40 to 1. He is the same odds as a guy like Furyk, who's a little more expensive, but people might play more of. He falls in this kind of dead range where these names aren't guys that people are very sure of right now. And I'm not sure of any of them either. So that's why I'm kind of lost as to whether or not I want to play them. I think there's one guy that I think is cash viable in this range, but I really don't trust any of the other guys. I mean, so Chappell not played well here in the past. That worries me. His recent form, trash. That worries me. He screwed me 2 weeks ago. That worries me. So I'm just not going to play much of him, but that FanDuel price is criminal. But again, I'd rather have, if my choices are Furyk or Chappell, I'm taking Furyk because I feel safer with Furyk. Could Chappell go out there and prove me wrong at that dumb price? Sure, but could he miss the cut? Sure, good players have missed the cut in this tournament in the past. It's not shocking. Graham DeLette misses the cut here. Some other guys. Graham McDowell always misses the cut here. Summer Hayes has missed the cut twice. These are good players missing cuts at this tournament where they probably shouldn't be missing the cut very much. So, yeah, I mean, there's that. He's just risky to me, and I don't trust him right now. I trust Furyk. Old man Furyk. He's reliable. He knows what he's doing. Keegan. I like Keegan. I don't like Keegan in cash. I never liked Keegan in cash. I played him in cash at the Greenbrier. That wasn't bad, but Keegan in cash at the Canadian Open, where he's never played before, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So Keegan's known as a big par 5 scorer kind of guy, but he hasn't been scoring on par 5s really at all this year. His proximity has been bad, and his putting has been bad, which worries me. Sure, his approach and off the tee game have been very good recently, but he hasn't been putting the ball close, and he hasn't been putting the ball in the hole enough. He's good from this 400 to 450 range, but a lot of that is at courses recently where he's had good success in the past, like TPC River Highlands and the Greenbrier. I think he's had success in the Greenbrier. But yeah, so with him, it's kind of a wait and see. I don't think I'm giving up anything by playing, a Poulter over a Keegan. I mean, Poulter's been more consistent than Keegan, popping more in the key stats that I'm looking at. So if I'm going to take one of these guys, it's going to be Poulter. Lingmerth is a guy that I was on for a while, but he just kind of kept faltering in tournaments, and that worries me a little bit. I mean, could Lingmerth go in top 10? Sure, he is a 12th here before. So I think Lingmerth is a great GPP play. Nobody's going to be on the guy. His odds fell like a rock. They were 33 to 1. So if you're looking at the Roto Grinders first look, if you're looking at that, you're going to see that Lingmerth is 33 to 1. Well, that doesn't reflect the current market. I mean, this changes. People bet on guys because they're on them, and the bookmakers, or the odds makers didn't put a guy at the right price according to the general betting public. So I think Lingmerth is a guy that people are off generally this week, but does he have the capability to go do really well here? Yes. So he's a GPP play only. I'm not going to talk too much about him, but the stats, they're there. It's just the approach that worries me. Approach tends to correlate really well with people that do really well here, and then the off the tee, around the green, putting stats matter as well, but they're not as much as the approach. The key is avoiding that shit and not, doing well getting out of it. You're still limiting your upside by doing well getting out of the shit. The goal is not to get in the shit and then make a birdie and, get to minus 18 on the weekend, or minus 18 on Sunday, and you're there to win. So that's my take on that. Approach, tee to green, those matter most. And what do you know? Ian Poulter, tearing it up recently. The putter has not been great for him, but I mean, he's just been super steady recently. I have a hard time seeing him really falter here. And this course is known to get a little windy at times. I'll tweet some of the forecast stuff later, just because I saw very early in the week, so early that I couldn't put any stake in it, but I saw there was a wind forecast for Friday afternoon, a pretty heavy winds. So I'll look into it more tomorrow, but I'm not going to make lineups based on that right now. So Poulter I like a lot. I'm going to play Poulter in cash on FanDuel, and I could probably play Poulter in cash on DraftKings. Depends on kind of my lineup build. I'm not really feeling like I need to go there. I do have a build that starts Kuchar Poulter, and I have builds that start Finau Hoffman and Hoffman Watson and Finau Watson. So all of that kind of is iffy to me in terms of the two studs. I know I want two of these guys, ideally in a lineup, but I don't know which two I really want the most yet. Sorry, making some evening plans. But yeah, so Poulter is a guy that I'm fine with as my kind of second level in cash, and on FanDuel, he's probably going to be my third level in cash. Just because I'm definitely starting Finau Hoffman. I mean, those guys provide so much value over there to start a build. And Bubba does too. I'm just not as sold on trusting him. You could go Finau, Hoffman, Bubba, and I think that's a very viable strategy. I just have trouble trusting anyone under like 6.5K on FanDuel this week. So that's my take on the top guys. Lahiri's a guy that I'm just not going to have much of. He could do really well here, but he's never played here. GPP play only. JB, another GPP play only, very streaky. Sets up well here in terms of what everyone thinks that JB is, but he hasn't been that recently. He just hasn't been scoring much on the holes that you want him to be scoring on to succeed at this course. I mean, he's been great off the tee, but approach putting been bad, so he hasn't been scoring well, and I think that limits his upside here. I mean, could he make the cut? Sure, but he's missed MDF'd and a 16th, so I mean, he showed up here in 2009. Okay, cool. Thanks, JB, but he hasn't been playing here recently. He hasn't done well here recently, so it's GPP only for me, but he's in play. Harris English, another guy off the tee, total shit, but approach and putting, he's been on point, but he hasn't been hitting from the ranges that we're looking at this week, so I think he's in play for GPPs. That price is crazy. I would not pay that really on either site, so I think English will be like 5% or less, probably 3% or less, and you can go there if that approach stat really suits you, but not really on him. Graham DeLette, if you're playing the Canadians narrative this week, Graham DeLette's going to be your guy, but man, I don't really know what to make of him. I mean, 2 missed cuts here in the past. He hasn't really changed as a player since last year. I mean, great ball striker, but awful around the greens. I mean, he can't hit a bunker shot here to save his life. He gave was a media plug about how this bunker's had like an inch of sand, which is like 3 inches below tour regulated level. So that was funny to hear the guy that's like literally the stone worst at scrambling on tour complain about the conditions for scrambling. It's like, hey man, maybe you're not very good at it. Take an open stance, put the club face open, hit down on the sand behind the ball. Like, hey Graham, if you need sand lessons, man, come to me. But 50 to 1, I think, is a trap on him because he's a good ball striker. But the Canadians, man, they don't show up here. Like, they don't. They fuck up here all the time. They just succumb to pressure. Don't play their game. I don't know what's up with them, but yeah, Graham DeLette has been not good here, and I don't like to see that, especially for a guy that I think might get a little traction this week. I like Ben Martin a lot more. He's just been killing it recently. I mean, the guy has been on fire with his irons, putter. Off the tee hasn't been great, but if he's doing everything else well, I don't think that's a huge drawback on him. Missed the cut here last year, but he wasn't in great form coming in with a few missed cuts before that, I think, or at least in like sporadic weeks. Recently, he's just been top 10, top 30 pretty much every week, and I think he does it again this week. I don't see any reason to get off the guy. And then again with the proximity stats, I mean, 125 to 150, not great, but from what I understand, he's not a very long hitter, and I think he would be just fine this week. So I like him in cash on FanDuel and DraftKings if you need to go there. The problem is I like Patrick Cantlay a lot. I mean, this guy is a world-class player, goes to school, or went to school at the same place I go to school now, albeit I'm in law school. He just was an undergrad. But yeah, fellow UCLA Bruin, Patrick Cantlay. I mean, just look at the guy's stats. He's a great player. He's world class. He basically only is playing the events this year that suit his game. And from what I understand, he's trying to get into the PGA Championship, the final major of the year, somewhere where I think he could contend. So I really like Patrick Cantlay this week. He's underpriced relative to his odds on both sites. I mean, if this guy was playing every week, he would be up with Finau and Bubba and Hoffman in that price range. That's what the odds say. The odds are dropping. So the odds on Cantlay, kind of like an unknown to the public, I think. The odds opened at 33. They are now down to 28. I updated the odds right before doing this pod. So Cantlay's down to 28 on most sites now. which means that people were betting him at 33. And that says a lot about this guy. So if you don't know who he is, trust me, he's a great play this week. The FanDuel price is criminal. The DraftKings price is criminal. And you're going to want to eat that chalk, I think, at the end of the week on Patrick Cantlay. I mean, so if you look at his results this year, he hasn't missed a cut, number one. Great sign. Number two, the tournaments that he's been playing are harder, much harder than this one. Deeper fields as well. So he's been, top 30ing, top 10ing in fields that are much tougher than this, tournaments that are much tougher than this. So I like Cantlay a lot. Danny Lee really screwed us at the John Deere. Everyone was on him except for the people that bought into the tired Danny Lee narrative. Turns out that the injured Danny Lee narrative came to light. So I'm not going to be playing Lee on FanDuel. I'd rather take Bubba at that price if you're caught in that dilemma. But that DraftKings price is tempting, man. Like, because we're paying 90-something hundred for Danny Lee, 9,000 something, and 40 to 1, like, his odds are still very good for that price. So I think you could definitely start a cash lineup like Hoffman, Cantlay, Lee, or Kuchar, Cantlay, Lee if you want to. Like, I don't see a problem with that. I kind of like that. The problem is Danny Lee's tweet. I'm going to Twitter it up real quick. Danny Lee, Danny Golf, 72. It's bad I have his Twitter memorized because look at that. Look at that man. Look at that selfie. Gotta love it. Right here. My injury is getting better. And I'm ready to go, guys. Like, what the fuck does that mean? My injury is getting better? Like, if I'm putting money into a guy and thinking he's going to do well in a golf tournament full of healthy individuals, I'd prefer if he didn't say that I'm getting better. When you have the flu and you stop feeling like total shit, you say you're getting better. When you have a cold and, your throat stops hurting but your nose is still running a little bit, you say you're getting better. You don't say, I'm over it. So, and not only that, but we don't know what his injury was. And then on the flip side, he was over in England. He paid money out of his own pocket to go over to England and be an alternate for the Open. Now, do I think that Danny Lee goes over to be an alternate for a major if he is truly injured? I don't think he would do that. So I don't, maybe he did it just on the hopes that he would get in. I think he was the first alternate by the time the tournament started. So maybe that's a thing, but I mean, he's on point right now. It's hard to argue with it, and he made the cut here last year. So I might just kind of blindly just click Danny Lee because we know that he fits this course pretty well, and I like where he's at. I mean, minus the injury withdrawal thing. I mean, do I think he'd be playing here if he was injured? No. I think he'd be resting more. I mean, that's what Snedeker's doing. Snedeker's not on the sheet, by the way. He's on the sites. Don't play him. Don't do that. Unless you're entering the big $5 double up or, the Eagle on FanDuel. Don't play Snedeker. I'm in those tournaments. But yeah, so Gary Woodland is a guy that I'm not going to play this week. I'm going to fade him. Fade. Keeps making cuts, but isn't doing anything. And he just worries me a little bit. Like, I'm paying $7,900 for a guy that just doesn't do anything. I don't know. I mean, could he be safer than Danny Lee? Maybe. Does he also scare the shit out of me in terms of, like, not really doing anything good here? Yes, because he doesn't do much very good here. I mean, 61st, cool. I don't know. I mean, I think he's a cash play only. I wouldn't play him in GPPs. I don't see the upside. Nick Taylor, total fade. I hate the guy. Yeah, Canadian, cool. Hate the guy. Kelly Craft, tee to green machine recently. Approach has been on point. Great from our proximity ranges. 26th here last year. I think he's going to go really overlooked because he didn't really follow up his tee to green monster performance at the Greenbrier with anything spectacular. But I think you could find that again here. And then again, his stats are inflated from that tournament, but I think he still has a good chance to go out and perform here. This is his kind of course, so I like him a lot. McDowell, totally off. Just hasn't shown up anywhere recently. Total fade. Kevin Tway I like a lot here on a Bombers course. He's been scoring well on par 5s. He's been good from our proximity range, which is key for par 4s. And, you know, his approach and off the tee game haven't been spectacular recently, but I still think the guy could be in contention come Sunday, so I'm not so sure about him in cash. I'd rather play Martin for the same price, basically, on FanDuel. And I like him more than like Palmer, Summerhays. I trust him a little bit more. He's been making a lot of cuts. I think he definitely makes the cut here. I just don't know what his upside is. He's had like one really good round each of the past few tournaments, but hasn't really like had those rounds like strung together where you're going to get a top 5 out of the guy. So I think he's in play. You know, and he was on that heater earlier in the year, but not really anymore. Just kind of making cuts now, showing up. Lahiri's a great GPP play this week. I mean, the guy owns par 5s, and if that comes into play here, I mean, his approach game and his putting have been great. So I love Lahiri and GPPs. I don't think anyone's going to play the guy. I'm the first person I think that's talked about him all this week. He comes into this popular price range between literally 6 other guys that have been getting talked up this week, and Lahiri's just been not spoken of at all. And usually he's a guy where he's like 6,600 and you know, everyone's kind of like, oh, well, if you need a punt that could go out in top 10, Lahiri's your guy. Well, this week I think Lahiri's your pivot in this range. If in a GPP, maybe you don't want to play Tway. Maybe you don't want to play Hahn. Maybe you don't want to play List, Campbell, Reavie, all guys that I really like this week to varying degrees. Luke List. But Lahiri's a guy that I think could definitely play really well here. I haven't heard anyone talk about him, but he lines up really, really well. So I'm going to have some GPP exposure to Lahiri. Not heavy, but I don't think I need to be heavy to be overweight on Lahiri. Or toss Lahiri into a chalk du jour line, and you already have a guy in there at like 3% owned. So I like that call a lot. James Hahn is another guy that I really like this week. He was an alternate at the Open last week. Very good vibes out of his camp. You know, he didn't expect to be there. He flew all the way over there from San Francisco, and now he's there, and he made the cut, you know, which is awesome for him. I mean, been playing well recently. I like James Hahn a lot this week. I think he's safe in cash or GPP. Don't see any reason to avoid him. But, oh, God. Luke List. I've got to update the odds on this guy. People are betting him. This is what it was last time. Yeah, that really changes things. Not really. We know who Luke List is. He's a spreadsheet darling. He can't putt worth dick. He's like literally the worst putter in this field, besides Ryan Palmer. But they've both done well here in the past. This course doesn't really seem to matter if you can putt or not. Luke List leads the PGA Tour in eagles on par 5s this year, which will probably come into play this week. He'll probably have, if I had to bet on Luke List I'd set his over-under for eagles at 2.5 in the first 2 rounds. So that's minus 4.5 right there. I mean, he'll give some of those strokes back, though. Don't get me wrong. He'll 3-putt holes, and he'll be back to even soon enough, but it's hard to deny that he has a lot of upside on a course like this. Gotta take a swig before the chalk of the week. Chad Campbell. Chad Campbell will probably be like 55+% owned this week. Don't see any reason he's not. Dude's been killing it. Checks out in every stat category. Hasn't missed a cut here. That's all I'm going to say. Stats speak for themselves. Dude's been on a heater. Moving on. Reavie, same deal. Dude's been on a heater. Puts the ball in the fairway. Doesn't get into trouble. Doesn't really score on par 5s, but he scores on par 4s. He has been dialed in recently. Approach, Peter Green. Putter's still top 50 in the field. He has a win here. And he has a 14th. He has a 41st, 31st. Missed the cut after he won here. I feel like that was a pressure thing. Gonna write it off. Reavie in play. Cash, GPP, and his odds are going down, which means people are betting him. 6,600 on FanDuel, lock and load, chalk of the week, 7,500 on DraftKings. Love that price. I like those guys a little bit more than Hahn. I think Hahn has some more busty potential, especially coming off the Open. Reavie took a week off. Campbell played the Barbasol. So I like that. I like to see that Reavie took a little week off, get ready, no pressure. I don't think Hahn had pressure either, but do I think Hahn makes the cut here? Yeah. I think he probably finishes around 40th. I like that a lot, but I like Martin a lot too. Could you... Tough call on FanDuel. I'm probably not going to play Martin in cash on DraftKings. I would rather just play Cantlay and Lee. But Martin does check out really well statistically. But kind of that 6,700, 6,600, 6,500 range on FanDuel. It's been tight every week. Streelman, Summerhays, Reavie, Campbell were there last week. Martin, DeChambeau. It was 6 guys that I was looking at that I loved. But I did end up throwing them all in a GPP and won me some cashola. But Hahn, yeah. If it's Hahn or Martin, I think the odds are there on Martin for a reason. He's been top 30 in everything instead of kind of more boom busty. And the stats check out more for Martin. Approach, putting, advantage Martin. Proximity from that range I'm not too worried about because Martin will still get the job done. Par 4, 450, Martin 90th. Hahn 60th. I don't think that's a huge difference. Par 5, 500 to 550. Martin's winning there. Par 5 birdie or better. Also Ben Martin. So I like Ben Martin a little more if that, it is my last spot. So if that's your last spot too, or if you're looking at guys in this range, I like Ben Martin a little more. I think Hahn goes a little overlooked though, just because his odds are less. So I like that. Play 2. Moving on. Stallings. Stallings is a guy, he's on a heater. But I think he's still a GPP play only. I don't trust him at all to keep this up. Yeah, I just don't trust the guy. Off the tee and putting haven't been good. He's just kind of been getting the job done with approaches, which I like to see. Approaches are going to be the part of your game where you're going to rely on the most. So I like that out of Stallings. I think he's a GPP play only, especially at that 7,500 price. Nobody's going to play the guy there. 6,200 to FanDuel. I think he might see some cash ownership on Stallings. I'm not going to have him, but that's all I got on him. Hadwin, I'm going to fade. I'm pretty much fading all the Canadians, if you haven't picked up on that. Hadwin at 8K on FanDuel is the easiest pass in the world. The guy hasn't shown up anywhere recently, and that's got to take a toll on you, especially when you were doing really well earlier in the year. He had a win, just followed it up with a 6th, I think. This is all coming out of my head, by the way. I just remember things like that. Yeah, but his stats recently have been total shit. He does have a 7th here in the past, but I don't really buy into the, Hadwin finds form this week. Not going to do it. Not buying any Hadwin. Sink. Heard some talk about Sink this week, but his approaches and his putter have been good recently. He's been good from this 400 to 450 range. He has a miscut, a 5th, and a 4th in 2004. 4th in 2004 is good to see. The 5th in 2015 is better. The miscut last year, I don't really know what to make of it. But he, played the last few weeks over in Scotland and at the Open on links courses. Not good for his game. He's not great off the tee. He's a bomber, kind of, but he can't really... He's not a great accuracy guy, so that's why I didn't like him last week. So I think Sink is in play for GPPs, but if you're going cash games, man, play Reavie. I'm not overthinking it. Playing Reavie. The guy with a more proven track record here and in better form. And even Sink's recent results, they haven't been top 40s, really. He hasn't been killing it. recently. So, I mean, he has a few top 25, top 30 finishes, but nothing crazy. I mean, Reavie's been on the first page of the leaderboard a lot of the most recent tournaments. So there's just, yeah. Smiley Hoffman, you can play him in GPPs. Um, he could play well here. Ricky Barnes, good recent track record here. GPP play, if you're a first round leader kind of guy and he goes off in the morning or at a time where there's not going to be much wind, I'd throw some money on Ricky. He's a first round leader bet all the time. But I don't know why that is either. It's very weird. But yeah, Ricky Barnes, I think he might get some cash ownership on FanDuel too. I just can't justify it. I mean, guy's been all right recently, but 5th and 11th here in the past. Missed cut too, but I'm not too worried. Yeah, you can play some Ricky in GPPs. But chalk of the week again, I don't want to fall into the trap of fading the cheap 7K chalk like I did with the Wes Bryant fade on the John Deere. That was a bad one. That one hurt. But Ollie Schneiderjans, the Hatless Wonder, 50-1 now. He was starting the week at like 110-1 or something. I saw a sportsbook had him, but now he's down to 50. People are on him. People are betting him. Stats don't really check out here, but he hasn't been like on fire recently. I mean, he's just kind of been making cuts. But if you're gonna pick somewhere where Ollie lines up really well, it's a place like this. So I think maybe he's overhyped this week. I think he's definitely worth a fade. But in cash, like FanDuel, 7K, playing Furyk. Not too hard for me. DraftKings price, though, 7,200 is a great price for Ollie, especially if he's going to be very chalky. I mean, I kind of need a value play to go with my Chad and Chaz. Chad and Chaz. Chad Chance Cantlay. Ollie Schneiderjans. A lot of good pronunciations here in our cash game core. But yeah, so God, fuck. Yeah, my cash lineup is probably gonna have Bubba in it. The more I do the math, that worries me. Probably over worried about that, if I'm being honest. But Vajagas, he's only in the model because of course history. Yeah, I think he's worth a GPP flyer, maybe an Ollie pivot, but he still hasn't done well here. Patrick Rogers is a lot of people's pick to win this week. His approach game has really let him down recently. 32nd and a miscut here. GPP play only for me. I think people will play him in cash, but I think they're batshit crazy. Summer Hayes. I don't know what to make of this guy. He was on a good run, and then at the Barbasol, when everyone thought he'd do really well, he went out and just like made the cut and just kind of like showed up. So I don't know what to make of that. I would have liked to see like a top 10 out of him, but like a top 10 where he wasn't in contention, like a backdoor top 10. Because I didn't want him to like come off the pressure of blowing it like he always does. I mean, take a look, go on FanDuel or DraftKings, wherever you look. Take a look at this dude's round 4 scoring average. It's got to be over par. Like, he sucks every Sunday. I feel like if Summer Hayes was just even par or better every Sunday, my ROI in recent weeks would have been hundreds more. Because he just sucks on Sundays, and it kills my lineups. Like, it just limits their upside. But Tee to Green recently, I mean, all these stats, he's fucking top 40. Like, it's really hard to argue with him. The problem is, like, God, do I trust Summer Hayes in cash after he just, like, just blew up at the Barbasol? Like, didn't do what everyone expected him to do. It's hard to trust him there. At the same time, he has an 11th here, but he's 2 missed cuts. So I like Summer Hayes for GPPs. I'm going to play Ben Martin over him. I know Martin's not as good statistically overall right now, but Martin's been more solid, and I mean Martin hasn't missed a cut in like forever. So I like Martin a lot. Summer Hayes worries me though, especially in cash. And if I were to play him in cash anywhere, it would be on DraftKings over Schneider Jans, just to get that 200 more. I can easily. There's one pivot I can make there. It's one of those things where I know that if I take Summer Hayes kind of as a flyer over Ali and tossing a Finau over a Bubba, that I know it's just gonna fucking bite me. Like, I know it happens. It happens every time. Yeah, every time. Like Phil over Adam Scott at the Open. Why would I take Phil over Adam Scott? Because I had the money for it. Phil's Open track record just as good as Adam Scott's, but Phil missing his caddy. Phil can't hit a driver straight. Phil can't hit anything straight right now. Adam Scott, ball strike, Open record, just as good. Better ball striker right now. Phil's approach game was number 1, though, so I went with Phil, and that fucked me over. Cost me a fair amount of money. Not ideal. But yeah, so Summer Hayes. These stats, by the way, are also from before the Barbasol. The site I use, fantasynational.com, did not have the Barbasol stats for strokes gained available. I'm not sure if they are available anywhere, but I feel like Summer Hayes would be down this list a little bit if we had those Barbasol stats. Let me go check if they're there right now, real quick. If you're not on this site, by the way, you need to get on it. I mean, I don't know what you're doing. Like, if you play fantasy golf and you're not on this site, and you just kind of like zombie walk through the terrain of stats, and don't use recent form or anything like that, like, really questioning you. But yeah, so I mean, these stats are all going to be from when he was on this heater here, 12th, 17th, 43rd, and I think I played him in all 3 of these tournaments. Yeah, like, so he was on this heater, but then he goes to the Barbasol. And, I mean, where's he at here? Grayson Murray won, which is crazy. But, yeah, like, not 63rd. Like, come on. Just no good rounds. Especially, I mean, so Summer Hayes is 71, 69, 68, 70. Like, Hunter Mahan shot a 69 in this course. Hunter Mahan was 67, 64th. Summer Hayes was 63rd. Like, come on. So he was making birdies, but there was something up with him, that wasn't good last week. I mean, if Summer Hayes was in this, like, minus 14 and 15 range, I'd be all over him this week. But, like, Smiley, Percy, Barnes, I like all these guys this week, if you're looking at this. Smiley, Percy, Barnes, Chad Campbell, 18th, love it. Yeah, Smiley, Percy, Barnes, all guys that I think could do really well this week, but they're GPP only. Percy especially. Percy could do really well this week. Great history here. Seamus Power, another guy on this board that I might as well talk about quick before I go back to my sheet. Seamus Power sets up really well here. Great par 5 player, and 20th and 31st recently in approach and putting. That seems like a recipe for success. If I were a betting man, I would be putting money on Seamus Power at 125 to 1. That seems like reasonable value. Yeah, I really like Seamus Power. I don't like him in cash. I think he really worries me in cash. But he's made a lot of cuts recently. It's one of those things where, dude's a rookie, he hasn't played this course before. His off-the-tee game hasn't been great. So he could potentially find some of the shit that is around this course. The water, not good. And it could, again, just be because he's not a long hitter. But I have a hard time believing he's not a long hitter if he's, decimating par 5s like he has been. So I like Seamus Power, but GPP only for me. Morgan Hoffman is a guy that I've heard some talk about, but I think he's another GPP only play. I mean, he just hasn't played well here in the past. 2 missed cuts in a 52nd. So, mean, recent form tends to outweigh course history. Really sharp guy at Smart Golf Bets, Mike Miller. This guy who lives in the Congo. He was on the Wiley podcast this week. Said that he form is 75%, 75% recent form, 25% course form. So, I mean, if you're taking that into account, Morgan Hoffman makes the cut this week. But, it's hard to trust a guy that seems to either miss the cut or top 12 every week. So, I'd take him in GPPs only. I'll have some exposure. Percy, another guy I'll have exposure to. Mainly because he has two 12th place performances in his last two. And made 3 cuts. Here. No worse than 44th. So I like that. GPP only, though. That FanDuel price, great GPP play on FanDuel. 5K really opens up your lineup. You can do whatever the hell you want with it at that point. So I like that a lot. Man, if FanDuel had that old round 1, 2, 3, 4 format, Percy would be a stone lock for rounds 1 and 2. I mean, lock for rounds 1 and 2 because you still got finishing points, right? So Percy goes out there in top 25. I mean, he clearly played well the whole week. He made the cut, and then he played really well. So Percy would have been the GOAT round 1 and 2 play over there. Because it doesn't matter if they miss the cut, because they don't accrue points on the weekend for performance, only for finishing. So, yeah, would have been the GOAT over there. McGirt, seems crazy seeing McGirt at 6,700. I mean, how the mighty have fallen. Well, not really. Dirt was never mighty, just kind of average. And he's Dirt McGirt. Just hasn't performed really well recently. The results haven't been there. Trended down at this course recently. I'm going to fade him. Ben Crane, guy that's played well at this course before. Can't score on par 5s recently, though, which worries me a little bit. So, or long term. Somebody said he's been scoring on par 5s recently, but long term, not there. So I don't really like Ben Crane this week. He doesn't play. GPP only. Cockrack, GPP only. Great stats, lines up really well. 31st here in the past. But I fell into this trap before with Cockrack. Don't care what the stats say. GPP only. Guy can miss the cut at any time. Michael Kim, can't putt. Worth dick. Great everywhere else. Losing strokes to the field putting every week. Probably good for a made cut here. I just don't see myself needing to go to 6,600 in cash. Doesn't seem to help me anywhere. And, very risky. He doesn't perform well enough that you're safe with him, making cut. There's no upside to Michael Kim at all because of his putter being so bad. So if his putter goes, colder than usual, Michael Kim probably missed the cut. Same with Luke List. If Luke List's putter is hot, so Luke List has been losing 3 to 5 strokes putting every week, right? And so looking back at his past results, his putting performances when he was in the, 14th, 21st here in the past. His putting performances in those tournaments were, he was neutral to the field in putting. Now, if he does that again this week, I think he has a great week. The problem is he hasn't shown shit with his putter recently. Nothing. So if Luke List is going to be chalk, I might just totally fade him and hop on Lahiri. And I might be way overweight on Lahiri if List is going to be popular. So that's my take on that. But back to the putting. Michael Kim. Seems safe for cash, but I still think he's risky. Sabatini, a guy that's been playing well recently, GPP only. He has 2 good performances here before, kind of a bomber's course. And Alex Chayka, guy that had 5th last year. I'm just going to delete him off my spreadsheet because I'm not going to play him. I don't even want him there. Yeah, that's all I got this week. So if I had to pick a winner this week, I'm going to pick Charlie Hoffman to win. He's been really close recently, and he's been trending up here at this course. Charlie Hoffman to win. Top 10s. Finau. Cantlay. Campbell. Top 25s. Reavie. Schneider Jams. Poulter. Bubba. And I think my fade of the week is going to be in GPPs, Gary Woodland. I'm not playing Gary Woodland in GPPs. My fade of the week is gonna actually be, I think Luke List. I think he's gonna be popular enough where he could be considered a chalky GPP play for that 7K range, or at least a significant amount of people are gonna have him. I'm gonna pivot to Lahiri. I'm gonna have way more Lahiri. I think Lahiri is a better player overall than Luke List is. So that's my take for the week. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter at mandrews93dfs, and I'll be tweeting out some things during the week, random things. This is Tuesday night, late. So yeah, that's all I got for you this week. Best of luck.